before we begin the Seder, maybe just a few words about the background and the roots of this wonderful and very meaningful and Kabbalistic Tu Bishvat Seder. But this Seder began in Tzfat, in the holy city of Tzfat, in the northern part of Israel, when the Kabbalists of the 16th century instituted the Seder. They instituted the Seder in order to make Tu Bishvat, this beautiful festival in which we celebrate the birthday of the trees, as relevant as possible. Relevant not just to our spiritual self, but even relevant to our psychological self, to our emotional self. There are a lot of psychological, emotional levels and dimensions to this Seder, as you'll soon see. And they began the Seder in Tzfat, and very quickly it spread to the rest of Israel, and then thereafter to the entire world. And today, many communities across the world do this lovely Tu Bishvat Seder to celebrate again, not just the trees and their fruits, but also to celebrate what they symbolize. Now, the big idea of the Seder is rooted in this verse from Deuteronomy that says, Ki Adam Etz HaSadeh, that man is like the tree of the field. Now, how are we like the trees of the field? So there are many answers to this question. Answer number one is because just like trees continue to grow and produce fruits, so too human beings are supposed to continue to grow and produce fruits. The Lubavitcher Rebbe, blessed memory, would often say that to live is to grow. And if you don't grow each and every day, then you really are dying in a way. Everyone has to grow to make today better than yesterday and less better or less good than tomorrow. Tomorrow will be yet another day and a better day. So that's one big parallel between trees and human beings. Another parallel, as the Kabbalists taught, is that trees really have three different elements to them. Element number one is the roots. Element number two is the trunk and the branches. And the element number three is the fruits. So too with human beings, we have roots. We have to know what our roots are. Or as Winston Churchill famously said, you cannot know where you are going if you do not know where you came from. So everyone has to know what their roots are. That's a part of our identity, a part of our calling. Now, there are Jewish roots, very general, collective Jewish roots, but there are also particular roots. My parents, for example, come initially from North Africa. So what are those traditions? How am I being connected to those roots? That's individual roots that every one of us has. But just as trees are not made just of roots, they also have their own trunks and branches. So too, we can't just rely on our past and say, hey, our great-grandfather and our great-grandmother were righteous people. They were tzaddikim. Me, not so much, but I don't care as long as I have a grandfather who was a big tzaddik. No, that's not good enough. It's good to be connected to your roots, but you have to build something of yourself too. You have to make your life as full and as meaningful as possible too. So you have to have your own trunk and your own branches. That's element number two. And element number three, it's just like trees have fruits, so too we have to give our all to produce fruits. What are fruits? Fruits are good deeds. Fruits are also children or spiritual children. Fruits is the impact that we have on the world. Fruits is our ability, just like fruits themselves, to bring sweetness and even vitamins and all the richness that fruits have to the world around us. We have opportunities like that each and every day, and we ought therefore to seize those opportunities each and every day. And that is yet another element that we have in common with trees. So that's why we celebrated trees, and that's why we celebrate trees in this often. Now, the Tu Bishvat Seder takes this to a different level and shows that there are many more, maybe detailed parallels between fruit trees and human beings. And as you'll see, there are cups of wine that will present human beings, and there are fruits themselves that will present human beings. So let's get right into it. There are 4 parts to the Seder. The 4 parts of the Seder, really, as the Kabbalists taught, represent 4 different things. The first 4 different things are the 4 seasons. And for that, we have the cups of wine that will present the 4 seasons, as we'll soon explain. The other thing that these 4 parts of the Seder represent is the 4 worlds. In Kabbalah, in Jewish mysticism, we are taught that there are 4 worlds. This world is the 4th world, the lowest of all worlds. There is, to begin, according to the order, there is the first world, which is also called Olam HaAtzilut, or the world of emanation. Then the second world is called Olam HaBriah, which means the world of creation. Then there is the third world that's called Olam HaYetzirah, which means the world of formation. And then there's this world, again, the lowest of all worlds, which is called the world of action, Olam HaAsiyah, world of action. Now, we'll speak about these 4 worlds as we celebrate the Seder, but again, the 4 parts of the Seder are parallel to each of those worlds, as you see. So we have the 4 seasons, and then we have the 4 worlds that these parts represent. And then the last but not least, it's also divided into 4, not just to represent the 4 seasons and the 4 mystical worlds, but also they are there to represent 4 different types of human beings. If there is indeed a connection between trees and human beings, so let's go all the way and let's speak about the different types of human beings that exist on this planet. There are 4 different types of human beings, and since we are celebrating human beings and their growth, just as we are celebrating trees and their growth on Tu Bishvat, so we'll be speaking also about these 4 different types of human beings that are represented through the fruits that we will eat. Okay, so that's the big general introduction to the Seder, and let's get right to it. So I'm going to ask everyone, if you have, of course, if you have at home some white wine, to begin pouring yourself some white wine. Of course, we'll say a blessing all together too, as we celebrate this Tu Bishvat Seder. By the way, Tu Bishvat, we're a day late. No, 2 days late. Tu Bishvat was celebrated on Monday this week, but our class is scheduled on Wednesdays, so we're celebrating it today. But still, it's never too late. Just trying to open this bottle. 1 second, I have a water bottle opener here. Okay. All right. So we have, for this first cup of wine, we're going to have purely white wine. Or you can use white grape juice if you want to. Now, why white wine? So again, this the 4 cups of wine that we'll have represent the 4 seasons, and they also represent 4 types of human beings, as the fruits also will represent. The white wine here represents the season of, what's the season that's white? Not so much in Arizona, but in other parts. Winter, right, where the snow covers most northern parts of this globe, and we are celebrating the season, and at the same time praying that this winter season will be as fruitful, as productive, as healthy as possible for planet Earth and also for human beings. So let's say l'chaim over this cup of wine, and at the same time we'll say a blessing over the wine. This blessing, by the way, will include all of the cups of wine that we'll have today, so that we'll only have to say it once. Let's say it together. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagefen. L'chaim, and l'chaim to the winter season, represented by the whiteness of this wine. Now, this also represents a specific type of human beings. So in general, and I don't know if this is true, if psychologists would agree with this at least, but there are 4 different types of human beings. The fruits will get into other aspects of those 4 types, but the cups of wine that we are drinking speak of the human being that's completely an introvert, the human being that's a little bit introverted but still has an extroverted dimension to him, then the human being that's completely an extrovert, and then there's the human being that is more of an extrovert, but he has an introvert side to him. So you see, understand? 4 different types of human beings: introverts and extroverts, and then introverts that are a little bit extroverts, and extroverts that are a little bit introverts. This white cup of wine represents the human being that's completely an introvert. Why? Because white, or as Kabbalah explains, white is also the color of the holiness in the heavens. And these are people who retreat to be with the heavenly self. They don't need the color of the earth. They just want to be as white as the heavens. And this is what we are celebrating by drinking this white cup of wine. We're celebrating all those introverts out there. If you think of yourself an introvert, so a special l'chaim to you too, because again, this is what this color represents here. L'chaim, l'chaim. Okay, so we spoke of the 4 seasons, the 4 different types of human beings. Now we'll go to the, as part of the first part of the Seder, we'll go to the fruits themselves. For the first fruit, we'll pick a fruit that has a shell on the outside, like an orange, or I have an almond right here. Almonds really are shelled. So they have a shell on the outside, a peel on the outside, but they have a fruit on the inside. So in other words, they're inedible on the outside, but edible on the inside. Why do we pick this fruit for the first part of the Seder? Because the first part of the Seder comes to celebrate the world of action. This world, the world that is the lowest of all worlds. In this world, on the surface, all we can see is peels. All we can see is shells. All we can see is toughness. All we can see is dirt and filth. But if we learn to dig into this world a little bit, then we'll find the fruit. We'll find divine sparks. We'll find goodness. Judaism truly believes that there is goodness in everything. And if we can't find it, it's because we haven't dug deep enough. So this fruit, which also comes with an outer shell, with an outer peel that has covered it, represents our duty to uncover the peels of this world in order to finally discover the fruit within. That's the first part of what this fruit represents. The other part of what this fruit represents is going back to human beings. Again, we keep juggling from fruits to human beings to fruits. That's what it's all about, finding a parallel between the two. But this type of fruit represents those human beings that also have a peel on the outside. They have a shell on the outside. They have a mask, not just here in our COVID-19 era, but also a spiritual mask where, they come across as rough people. But if we can peel that outer layer, we'll get to know them and get to know them better. We'll find that there's a fruit. We'll find that there's a soul, even in those types of human beings. And our duty is indeed to peel those human beings and find that fruit. So that's what this fruit represents. Again, the world of action that is covered with peels, but it's our duty to dig into it to find the divine sparks, and presents again the human beings that are tough on the outside, but sweet on the inside. We'll say the blessing over this fruit and over all fruits too. Let's say the blessing together. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam boreh peri ha'etz. Okay, you can have any fruit that has a peel on the outside and the fruit on the inside. I had an almond, you can have an orange, you can have a banana, you can have an avocado. Actually, an avocado has a peel both on the inside and on the outside. So I don't know if avocados count. But you can have any type of other fruit that has a peel on the outside. All right. That was the first part of the Tu Bishvat Seder. Again, we have 3 additional parts. Let's go to the second part. And for now, we're going to take our cup of white wine. Okay. It's still quite white, but we're going to mix it with a drop of red wine. Just a drop to make it pinkish. Maybe that's too much. Yeah, I'm going to add some more white so that it's more pinkish. There you go. Now, the reason we do this is to, again, celebrate one specific season and then to celebrate one specific type of human being. Which season do you think we're celebrating with this whiteness that has a drop of red? Anyone?
Spring.
What comes after the winter?
Spring.
Thank you. Very good. That's right. Who was that?
Mindy.
Oh, thank you, Mindy. Yeah, that's right. The spring season, where we are starting to see some colors finally filling the fields of the world. They're filling the backyards and the front yards of the world. There's some color finally blossoming out there. And that comes to celebrate and at the same time, again, to pray for the spring season, that it should be as healthy, as blossoming and as productive as possible. So let's say l'chaim to the spring season altogether. L'chaim, l'chaim. All right, this cup of wine also represents, remember we spoke of the 4 types of human beings, the introverts, extroverts, and those that are introverted but have an extrovert aspect to them. This is what this cup of wine represents. Again, those introverts are introverted towards the heavenly self, which according to Kabbalists is symbolized by the color white. White, the color of purity, the color of the heavens inward, at least. You know, many people speak of this white aura that people have sometimes. That represents some type maybe of holiness, but introverts go towards that whiteness. But they also have, these are the human beings that are not just strictly introverts, but they have an extroverted part to them. They have some color. They like to be a little bit bubbly on the outside, a little bit colorful on the outside, just a little bit. Therefore, we added just a drop of redness to this whiteness to represent those types of people, and of course to say l'chaim to them. If you think of yourself as that type of person, it's a special l'chaim to you too. L'chaim, l'chaim. All right. Now we'll go to the fruits for the second part of the Seder. The fruits for the second part of the Seder are the exact opposite fruits that we had in the first part of the Seder. And those are the fruits that are completely edible on the outside, but inedible on the inside. They have a pit. So I'm going to have a date. The dates are edible on the outside, but of course, if you open them up, you'll find a pit in them. Now, those fruits represent the second lowest world, which is Olama Yetzirah, the world of formation. That's a world in which holiness is found in the most revealed way. You see the fruit, you see the holiness, but there are elements of bad in that world. For example, this world of formation is the world in which the angels come from. There are good angels, but there are also bad angels. The angel of death, for example, he exists in that world. What is most revealed is the holiness of the world. Just like this fruit, what's most revealed is the fruit. But if you dig a little bit into it, you'll find that pit. And that's what the world of formation is all about. Now, in addition to the world of formation, this also represents a different type of human beings or a different dimension of human beings. And those are the human beings that seem all full of smiles on the outside and happy and, you know, as loving on the outside as could get. But if you get to know them a little bit, then you'll see that they too are suffering with some challenges. They're not as sweet as they may have seemed to be at first sight. But does that mean that we reject those human beings? No. We still include them in the Seder. We still eat them, so to speak. We still celebrate them. So we'll celebrate the world of formation, and we'll celebrate those types of human beings too by eating this type of fruit. For me, it's the date. For you, it could be anything else. Again, it could be an olive. It could be whatever else you may have. That's a fruit that's edible on the outside, but inedible on the inside. L'chaim. Okay. I'm seeing a comment on the chat here. Speaking of the first part of the Seder in which we spoke about those human beings that have peels on the outside, and we have to peel them and find that fruit. It's true what this person is writing. People have to allow themselves to be peeled too, right? We can try to peel them, but if they're not going to collaborate, then it's going to be very hard. All right, friends, that was the second part of the Seder. The third part of the Seder will add some more color to our wine and make it redder by adding red wine to it. Not completely red, but still where the redness of the wine is more dominant than the white. Why? This comes to celebrate a very specific season. Which season? Where the sun shines.
Summer.
Sorry?
Summer.
Thank you. That's right. The summer, where the sun shines almost with this redness, right? And the colors are almost at full blossom, and there is a lot of life in the world. Now, by the way, I'm just reminded that this is why very many communities across the world during the summer have the custom every single Shabbat to be reading the Ethics of Our Fathers, which is the part of the Mishnah authored some 2,000 years ago that speaks of ethics and morals. Why? Because sometimes in the chaos of the summer and in the craziness of the summer, where all these colors are at full spring, you can get lost and you can lose your morals by getting lost. So people read the Ethics of Our Fathers each and every Saturday during the summer so that they remain focused, and so that those ethics can continue to be their compass in life. In any case, so this comes to celebrate the summer season as explained. We'll say l'chaim to the summer season, and of course we'll have in mind that it should be also a fruitful, productive, and a blessed season for each and every one of us. L'chaim, l'chaim. Now, again, this cup of wine represents a third type of human beings. And that's the type that's mostly extroverted, full of colors, again, bubbly and out there and colorful, maybe even a little flamboyant, but they have a little side of them that is introvert. They like the show and they like the spotlight and they like me to be full of life. But on the other hand, they also like their own space. From time to time, they like to retreat. And that's the type of human being that is being represented again by the redness of the wine, this color, this bubbly color, but on the other hand, with a little bit of white that's in it, it represents their small introverted side. L'chaim to those people. If you think of yourself of that type of person, then a special l'chaim to you too. Okay. Now we'll go to the fourth part of the Seder. I forgot the fruits of this third part of the Seder. So let's stick to the third part of the Seder. The third part of the Seder, when it comes to our plate of fruits, will include the type of fruit that's entirely edible. So I have in front of me, for example, both a fig, that's entirely edible, or raspberry, that's entirely edible. You can use, you can use blueberries, or any type of berries, right? Usually they're entirely edible, or again, figs or kumquats, if you want to be original. Kumquats, people eat them entirely. But anyhow, this fruit represents Olam HaBriah, the third world from the lowest to the highest. The third world is Olam HaBriah, which is the world of creation, which is entirely holy. The angel of death, no angel lives in that world. That's, by the way, the world in which our souls come from. Our souls come from that world because our souls are entirely holy. There's nothing bad about a divine soul. That world is where God's light shines without reservation. And because there is no bad in this world, it is represented by a fruit that's entirely edible. There's no bad part of this fruit. There's no part that's a waste. Again, to represent Olam HaBriah. Speaking of people, this fruit represents the type of people that are also entirely edible, so to speak. What does that mean? That are good through and through. They don't just fake smile on the outside, but they're real. They genuinely smile on the outside because on the inside, they also genuinely smile. They have no bad bone in the body, as the expression goes. They're just purely good, purely good. And again, represented by this fruit that's purely good, completely edible. So we'll have this fruit and we'll think of those people in mind too. And of course, of the world of creation also. If you think of yourself, well, I'm sure you're all, every 1 year is like this fruit. So by eating this fruit, we'll say l'chaim to all of you. All right. Okay. It's true that I'm getting a comment here that there is no human being that is purely good 100% of the time. It's true. It's very hard to find them. But I had the privilege of meeting the Lubavitcher Rebbe, for example, blessed memory. I think he was purely good 100% of the time, even when he slept. Now, was he like that at a young age? I don't know, but he certainly became like that when he grew up. Jackie, I love that comment. I am very good. Okay, all right. For this fourth part of the Seder, I'm going to use a new cup, and we're going to pour just red wine, completely red. And this red wine, again, comes to represent both a specific season and, of course, a specific type of human being. The season that it represents is, what do you think? Which season is the most colorful?
Fall.
See that mainly, I mean, in Arizona, you don't quite see that, but you see that.
Fall.
Thank you. The fall, where the leaves are starting to turn red themselves, and they fill the streets. And the streets are just so magnificently beautiful with all this color. And this is exactly what this cup of wine represents, where the redness now is completely dominant. And the color is at its full blossom. So we'll say l'chaim by drinking this cup of wine to the fall season. May it be a fruitful one, a healthy one, a productive one, a blessed one for each and all. L'chaim, l'chaim. Now this fourth cup of wine also represents that fourth type of human being, the human being that is completely an extrovert, that is always full of color. Those human beings don't necessarily like to be by themselves at any given point. They are just out there. Now, you know, you have different types of people that are out there. You have what people call party animals, but you also have people that want to impact this world so obsessively that they're always with people, always there trying to make an impact. And that's a good way of being. So it's not necessarily negative. And that color that they themselves embody, you know, the fullness of the red color, or the fullness of their being extroverts, is represented again by this fourth cup of wine, which is entirely red. L'chaim to those people. If you think of yourself as that person, so a special l'chaim to you too. All right, for this plate of fruits, for this fourth cup of wine, it's interesting to note that there is no fruit. There is no fruit for this fourth plate of fruits, for this fourth part of the Seder. Why? So speaking of the world first, we said that the highest world is the world of emanation, or what is called in Hebrew, Olam HaAtzilut. This world is a world in which God shines so mightily, so unreservedly, that there is really no room for anything else. And this is why we have no fruits on this plate. There's no room for fruits. It represents this, the only thing that exists is God's light. It's almost like if the sun was to shine a little closer to planet Earth. Planet Earth would not be able to survive. Why? Because there wouldn't be room for anything else but the sun and the light and the fire that it creates. That's the way it is in the world of emanation. God dwells there fully, unreservedly, and therefore there's no room for anything else, not even for fruits, not even for edible, completely edible fruits. And therefore we have no fruits, but it's still worth the mention. That's the world of Kabbalah. And that's the type of world that this fourth plate of fruit, or an empty plate of fruit, represent. But there is also a type of human being that this empty plate of fruits represents. Those are the human beings that we did not include. You know, during the Passover Seder, we speak of the 4 children, and many have introduced the idea of the 5th child. And that's the child that we may have abandoned. Child that no one is thinking of, the child that is so quote unquote unaffiliated or assimilated that we've given up on that child. And this is the type of Seder we're having here also. This fourth plate of fruits represent those children that, God forbid, we may have abandoned. And by seeing the emptiness of this plate, we are reminded also of those children and of our duty to bring them back into the fold, to bring them back into this emptiness and fill our plates with them, so to speak. So therefore, we Don't include any fruits, so that we can spend a moment to think of maybe people that I've completely ignored in my life, or people that weren't in the first place in my life. They're just not in my radar. And we take a moment of silence, as the Kabbalists suggested, just to go back and think of people that might fit this category, and ask ourselves, what are we going to do in order to show them some love, in order to connect to them, and most importantly, in order to bring them back into the plates of our lives and fill this emptiness with them. So again, as suggested, we'll take a short moment of silence. If you have any person that you think you've ignored for too long, this is the time to think of him or her, and to think of ways you can reconnect with them. All right, so that was the fourth and final plate of fruits. If I may just conclude the Seder, and I'd love to open this up to any questions that you may have about the Seder, about Tu Bishvat, about anything else also thereafter. But I do want to conclude with the story that was shared by the Kabbalists of Tzfat, who again instituted the Seder. They shared the story about two people who were fighting over a piece of land. One said, this belongs to me. The other one says, no, it belongs to me. What are you talking about? They don't know what to do. So they went to a rabbi, and they told the rabbi, please decide, who does this land belong to? The rabbi says, look, I don't know what the answer is. Even if I heard both of your sides, I still don't know what the answer is, but I have an idea. Why don't we go to the land and ask the land, who does she belong to? So they went out to the land, and they believed in the rabbi's magical powers to be able to speak to the land. And they're standing on the land, and they're asking the land, so who do you belong to? Do you belong to this guy or this guy? To Reuven or to Shimon? And after asking this question, the rabbi lends his ear next to the land, and he says, oh, the land you speak, I have an answer for you. And they were very intrigued, and they said, Rabbi, what did the land say to you? The land said to me, the rabbi said, that she doesn't belong to any of you, but rather you belong to it. That's the story by the Kabbalists. And it's a story that was shared over the Tu Bishvat Seder that, of course, has many lessons. First of all, that we have a responsibility towards God's land. We may think that it belongs to me, and therefore I can do anything I want with it. I can litter it, or I can destroy it, or I can disregard it altogether. No, we belong to it. We have a responsibility towards God's earth to maintain it, or as God said to Adam and Eve, le'ovda u'leshomra, to work it and to preserve it, to maintain it, to preserve it, l'shomra, to guard it. That's number one. A deeper lesson from this is that we also have a responsibility, as the Kabbalists would explain, to elevate the world, to elevate the land of the world. Each time we are interacting, and we're interacting right now with the land of the world. I'm interacting with the land that I'm sitting on, that I'm on top of, right? And everyone, as they're part of the of land, or they're part of the world that they are interacting with, we have a duty to do something good on that part of the land in order to elevate this land, in order to make it holy. You know, it says that when Mashiach will come and we'll be walking in the streets, say with bad thoughts, with impure thoughts, or with thoughts that are harmful or negative, then the land will start shouting at us and will say to us, how dare you walk on me? You are no better than me. With these types of thoughts, I'm better than you. How dare you walk on me? And in a way, this is what the Kabbalists wanted to remind us through this Tu Bishvat Seder, but through this story too, that we have a responsibility at every given moment to elevate the land that we're walking on and that we're interacting with by having good thoughts, and most importantly, by doing good actions, by doing mitzvot, in order to elevate the world that we were put on, or the piece of land that was designated for us and for us only. It's our responsibility to make this world holy. And that's the main message of Tu Bishvat. So again, L'chaim, everyone. L'chaim, to happy Tu Bishvat. And may we continue to make the land and all of its fruits and trees as holy as possible, learn from them, and at the same time internalize the lessons that they share with us regarding human interaction and regarding our responsibility towards one another and the land that God has given us. L'chaim, l'chaim, l'chaim.